Hello and welcome to Innovation Bites, the podcast where we take a snapshot of the tastiest and most exciting parts of the Australian innovation ecosystem. My name is Gavin Heaton, and Innovation Bites is brought to you by Disruptors Co, recorded at the Quantum Terminal on the lands of the Gadigal People of the Eora Nation.
And my name is Lenore. This week we'll be interviewing Ebony McKenna, Communications Director and co-founder of Polipedia. But first, let's take a look at what's making headlines this week. Cut Through Ventures' quarterly Australian VC report reveals that funding for female founders has hit an all-time high at all stages except the vital Series A rounds, which is at an all-time low.
Bupa has announced their Eco-Disruptive program, where Bupa employees, entrepreneurs and startups come together to tackle sustainability challenges within the Bupa business and the health sector more broadly. The goal is to find and support scalable startups where they can add value to their sustainability solutions.
While all other states banned the use of generative AI in schools amongst widespread concerns, South Australia has made a surprising move towards embracing the tech. Students from 8 public high schools will trial a chatbot app that shows students how to use the AI to support their studies. Education, Training and Skills Minister Blair Boyer believes that given AI is going to be in our work and lives, we have a responsibility to educate young people about its appropriate and effective use.
And Meta has launched Threads, a new direct competitor to Twitter. Sailing past 5 million users in a matter of hours, it's a groundbreaking new platform that we're all going to be playing with for weeks and months and maybe even years ahead.
That's all for the news headlines. We'll cross now to speak with Ebony McKenna, Communications Director and co-founder of Polipedia. Polipedia is a political data startup that disrupts the way Australians engage in politics and politicians. She also shares with us some insights about the newest app on the block, Thread.
Hi, Ebony. Thanks so much for being here. I'm so excited to chat to you today.
Thanks, Lenore.
I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure thing. Well, I'm Ebony McKenna and I'm one of the co-founders of Polipedia.com.au and very much an online situation here. And we are well, when I say we, my co-founder Sue Dhamapala and I use a lot of social media insights to see which way the wind is blowing with politics. So this is absolutely dovetailing into all our favorite interests to see the new developments this week with the launch of Threads.
Threads, it's very exciting and feels like it's a bit of a moment in time from 10 years ago.
Yes. It's a bit wild, but everyone's, the mood feels very light and it does feel like everyone's on their best behavior and we're all at a party where we know each other, but we're at a new place. So we're sussing it out a bit and just feeling our way and just seeing, who's here yet? And are they there? Right. Okay, they're here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That sort of thing, yeah.
So for the uninitiated, what is Threads in your perspective? From your perspective?
From my perspective, I would say Threads is a viable alternative to Twitter because there have been some others ever since Elon Musk came in. Lots of people have been saying, I'm leaving, I'm going somewhere else. And that has been going for a fair while. And it was one of those situations where people were super keen to leave, but then we wanted to hang around and see just how bad it would get.
Leaving, but I don't know where to go to.
Where do we go from here? What do we do? Where do we go? And so lots of people jumped to Mastodon, but Mastodon was overwhelmed because they just weren't ready. And fair enough, that's not what they were really designed for. There have been some other fantastic alternatives that have popped up. Spoutable, which was created by Chris Boozy. He runs Bot Sentinel. He was one of the people who he just exposed so many of the anti-Meghan Markle accounts that were coming from just a few people who are massively amplified. So he's a bit of a legend. And Spoutable was a terrific alternative. And there's been a few others too, but they just and even Blue Sky, which just launched, but you had to wait.
Yes.
So it was all new, but you had to wait for an invitation, and it didn't quite. I registered, but I haven't been able to get onto Blue Sky. And then suddenly Threads comes along, but it's got the backing of Facebook. So it's got a much easier way of getting onto the platform and bringing all your friends with you who are already there with you on Instagram, which is, pretty clever the way they've done it. Yep.
We were looking at a news article just before we jumped onto this call, and there was, I think they were saying, Elon was saying that, it's okay to be a copycat, but it's not okay to cheat. So in terms of compliance, do you think anything that might be a bit murky there?
Look, I don't know. I read that and thought, well, of course he's going to say, I'm going to sue you, because that's what else can he do? Since he took over on Twitter, he has been on Twitter a lot. And personally, I looked at that and thought, okay, mate, yes, you've had your fun, you're on there, but you need to do the work. You can't be tweeting all the time. I know you've bought it, and that's great, but you can't be there tweeting all the time. And it just came across as, I don't know, it just felt like the school principal kind of being in your classroom, watching you do an exam, that kind of feeling that they're watching you. It's like, oh, I don't want that, And the clever thing what they need to do now over on Threads is for Zuckerberg and the rest of them to just say, yeah, hey, we've launched, this is great, and then back off. They need to get out of there. Otherwise, they're just going to kill the vibe.
And it seems like they're doing a reasonable job of that. I did see one of the lead product designers sort of saying, hey, look, in the first 4 hours, we've got 5 million signups. And he's like doing a selfie in bed, just going, I'm going to bed now.
Yeah. Please, guys, get some sleep. You haven't seen the sun in 8 weeks, just get to bed. It's one of those things where a lot of people are testing the waters, but I could understand why Elon's feeling very threatened all of a sudden, but he has shown that he's capable of making crazy decisions that don't appear to be thought through. Now, I don't know. I can't speak for his motivation, so I don't know. But from a user's point of view, it has not been pleasant. And from just as an average person using Twitter to communicate ideas and share ideas, Twitter was a fantastic platform. Anytime there was breaking news, you could get on there and someone would be on the spot. They'd have a footage of it. You'd also get a lot of misinformation too, because you get some silly players who say, oh, this, when COVID happened and people say nature is healing and all those stories about, oh, look, there's a dolphin in the canals of Venice. And it was like, oh, well, that was fake. What a shame. It's such a shame that all of the good things have been feel like they've been sort of pushed out. And so, of course, people are looking for somewhere else. And then from our point of view, as running a startup, we aggregate social media sentiment and we aggregate political sentiment. So we've got every single federal politician and candidate listed in polipedia.com.au. We've got all the state and territory politicians and multiple candidates who've been in the most recent state elections. And at one point, we had social media insights tracking in real time to see just how popular and unpopular quite a few politicians were. And no surprise to anyone, we really don't think much of our politicians. But then Twitter just started to break. And the whole point of being on Twitter is to see what people are saying and doing. And you couldn't get that. And the point of being on there fell away. And if it's not doing what it's supposed to do, people are going to look for something else, or they're just going to stop using it. And then you get charged to use it. And it's like, well, I'm not paying to use this,
Whatever's going on in the background in Twitter, it seemed like there was a whole series of choices that were being made and directions that were being followed without regard to the user base, certainly for the generic user base, and then obviously not for the business customers either. So a real sense that you need me more than I need you kind of vibe. And I think over the weekend with the throttling, it really did feel like I'm only going to give you a little bit of what we've got here, even as a general user, and suddenly there's a whole new thing that's available. And of course, at the moment with the EU legislation sort of hanging in the balance there, there's not any advertising on Threads yet. But you kind of get the sense that there's stuff coming and there's stuff planned.
Look, the ads will come, absolutely, because they're going to want to monetize this as fast as possible, because you've got 20 million or however many millions of customers pouring in, and that's the other thing that's going to, people saying Twitter's circling the drain. Well, if you're relying on advertisers to get in front of eyeballs and the eyeballs are all gone, then I'm sorry, but that's not going to work. It's just too chaotic. And I think that's, chaotic's probably a good description for how to, and it's been enjoyable fun watching it go down, because there is no shade fruit, isn't there?
we do like a good fireball for sure.
Yes. So I think Threads will last because they've got a stack of celebrities who've poured in, they've got a stack of comedians who've poured in, and that's a really good fun. And the other thing that I noticed very early on was that the brands, the corporations were also flicking over too, and making jokes about, we've got a very overworked intern here, doing the best they can. And then the politicians are pouring in too. And that's sort of that critical mass that you need to show that, yes, there are people here that we want to hear from, and there are people here that we know will entertain us, and good vibes ensue.
It doesn't feel quite as hectic as Twitter did in those early days, although there is a bit of a vibe of that. It does feel like we've matured as a user base as well, and understand the challenges of dopamine, shall we say.
Yes, very much so, because when you scroll through, there's all these people there that I have no idea who they are. So it's like it'll take a while to kind of settle and get into the rhythm. But I also think because it's come from Meta and they have the heft behind them, that it's smooth to use. You can just get going very quickly, and it's intuitive, because this is how we do the microblogging, this is how we do it. There's no hashtags yet. You can't DM people yet, as we've discovered. It's like, how do we do this? Hang on, what about an email? That was funny, Gavin. It was like, how do we DM on this?
Where's the button for that? There is not one.
And so the other thing that I've noticed too is that you can only, at the moment, I think you can only have one account. That is very handy for not having people who have perhaps 3 or 4 alt accounts, all promoting or using the loudspeaker foghorn of one thing or another. So I think that, especially at the moment in Australia, where we've got the Voice to Parliament referendum coming up, but we haven't got a set date, that has felt like it's been a bit off the leash, with people with their alt accounts and, coming up with all sorts of crap. And you think, And then
amplifying across the,
and they amplify each other. That's what I was looking for, amplify. And that's, I haven't seen that yet. It will probably come to, all of the good vibes are there because everyone's sort of just turning up and having their first drink.
Yes.
And then later on, as the party gets a bit messy.
Oh, the old drunk uncle.
Yeah, exactly. The drunk uncles will turn up, and the barkeep will have to come, sweep us out the door, sort of thing.
All right, you can take that back to Twitter now.
Yeah. And that might be, that might be one of the insults that comes up. Go back to Twitter.
Go back to Twitter. Yeah, there you go. Well, thanks for your time, Ebony. That was really great to get your insights into the first day or so of the new Threads platform and what we're already seeing.
We might have
Yeah.
to chat to you in about 2 months and just see
See
how it all
what-
plays.
I know, right? Come back and it'll be like, you know, I'm all chirpy and bouncy right now, right? Full of energy. And like in 2 months, I'm like, oh. So the
It
next
was so
thing
good.
it was for good. It was for good. But this is what we really need to do from our point of view with Polipedia. We need to get hold of the API and be able to get this kind of the interaction and to see what the sentiment is, and which we can do, but it's just at the moment everything's just in such flux that it's like, gosh, how do we do our job?
It'll be changing on a daily basis, I'm sure. For
I
a little bit.
know, it's this constant flex to let's try this, let's try that. So even just this morning, we were talking with some other developers in Brazil because we are constantly trying to find ways to work around this and to gather all this data and to dress it up in a nice, easy, understandable way of looking at data and visuals and graphs and things like that. But it's just wild at the moment. It's like, okay, can we settle on one thing? Can we just do this? So partly I'm excited because it looks as if this one might be the one big one.
Mhm.
Whereas the others were spread around and it was going to be too difficult to try and how can you really judge sentiment if you haven't got the volume of commentary? So
Yes.
that's
Did notice that they're claiming to have a federated model, so we'll see how that actually plays out and whether it plays nicely with the mastodons and the other.
yes,
out
yeah,
there.
and I think I sort of think maybe the mastodon people will be a bit happy to see.
Take some pressure off.
I think Mastodon's a little, just if you can give people give these applications a personality. I think Mastodon is kind of like the introverts, and they're quite happy being nice and quiet. And then there's people early on. These people from Twitter poured in and said, "Right, what's going on?"
That's right. Used to be so nice here, and now.
Yeah, no, yeah, we messed the place up. Anyway. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's been great having a chat with you this morning.
As we have heard, Threads has created quite a disruption in the social media landscape. On the one hand, it's a consolidation under the Meta brand that has many eyeing it with caution. On the other hand, it's solving a pent-up need that Twitter was no longer serving.
So let's have a look at some of the headline elements for Threads. Users, more than 10 million users joined in around 7 hours. What was fascinating is that over a day later, it's already at 57 million users.
It's an incredible number, and I think there's definitely a lot in the news that's happening. I guess one of the things that we noticed was the login. So basically, if you've got all your Instagram followers, it's quite easy to just move them over. You've got all your followers there. You can import your bio photo. It's very intuitive, I think.
Yeah, and intuitive is right. I think the user interface is pretty simple. It's obviously come out of Facebook, out of Instagram, out of Twitter, out of that whole use of feeds, scrolling feeds. So it's really easy to use. It's pretty fast. The UX is quick. There is a lot of content, and obviously with 57 million users already in there, there's a lot of content coming through, but it's not glitching in the way that the Twitter has been. It's not being caught up in updates. It seems to be very smooth and very easy to use. So that's a big plus.
One of the things that I am personally loving as well is that there aren't any ads at the moment, which is very welcomed, but I'm sure that will come. One of the other things that we notice is there's no hashtags or edit buttons. Direct messages is also not there yet. I'm sure that it will be added as a functionality later.
Yeah, and things like search are still yet to be determined. At the moment, I think you can only search for user IDs, but like all these things, I'm guessing they were rushing out the door to try and take advantage of the Twitter fails that we've been seeing end on end
What
over
did
the
you
last
call
few
it
weeks.
before? The fireball. So Gav, you were pretty quick on the pulse with this app. What are your thoughts so far?
So there are a few things that I really do like. It is fast. I think we mentioned that before. It's really simple to use. It's familiar. And because certainly in my social networks, I have a lot of early adopters. So the people that I like to see are there. And that means that the algorithms haven't kicked in yet. We're not yet having controls over what we see or who we see or when we see them. So it is a bit of a free for all, but at the same time, that's a bit refreshing from what we've seen previously. I think one of the challenges that we've got coming downstream is to view privacy and content creation in its full context. So as we think about who does what, who owns what, who's writing, who's creating, who's consuming, and so on, it's pretty clear, or it seems clear to me at least, that this is a play to create a large language model on top, underpinning a new AI of some kind that may or may not emerge out of Facebook and Meta. And this is one of the first steps. So understanding that and being aware that at some point monetization takes place, and we may be the ones that are being monetized, we may need to consider.
It's really interesting. I guess it's just time to test and learn, isn't it? To play around. It's there's a lot of new people on the app at the moment, so it's
absolutely. And I think if we can be, I guess, a little optimistic with this, we've now had a good 15 years of using social media, and we're not babes in the woods anymore. We know how these work. We know how the platforms work. We know how the people work. We know how the bots work, and we know what data is being mined and where it's going and how it's being used. So we're also, and apart from the fact that everyone's very excited about a new thing, it does feel like we are taking our time with it and doing and taking steps in a considered manner.
So they're really interesting insights, Gav. Have you got any advice as to what companies should be doing right now, or how maybe they can use it for their businesses?
Great question. I think the opportunity is to really test and learn, like you said, but to test and learn with an outcome in mind. So think about what you're hoping to achieve with this technology, and then think through how it might be used. For example, I really like the idea of Instagram being a visual storytelling platform, but then we have a whole lot of text-based opportunities here in Thread. So I think the combination of those two platforms is going to be a bit of a groundbreaking opportunity for someone who gets it right. I think the opportunities for storytelling across Instagram and into Threads and then back is where there might be some really cool things. And who knows, maybe the UX team behind this has that already in mind, and they're going to do something that's going to blow our minds. I'm hoping, fingers crossed.
It seems maybe there's a little bit of, LinkedIn is obviously, there's a lot of storytelling there, and it's that small aspect coming across to Threads.
Yeah, and as we've seen over the last few years, every social platform tries to use everyone else's ideas in their own platform. So we'll see some cross-sell, we'll see some cross-applications, we'll see some connections between things, but we'll also see a lot of copycatting. So it'll be interesting to see where we go.
I'm not sure whether it's the companies that I've been following, but I feel like a lot of them are like coming across with a very playful element and like very human, and it's sort of, this is a person sitting behind the keyboard. So it's interesting to see whether that's.
It is. I was noticing that before. Netflix Australia seems to have a fairly robust, shall we say, position in the market, and which is fun, but also fascinating to see how, with a sense of permission, with a sense of playfulness, how that is just permeating the platform right now. So it does feel like a bit like a party, and it does feel a bit like a reunion. And oh my God, I can't believe everyone's here. Who are you? And by the way, great, we've got new friends. So it feels a little bit like that celebration of the new, but at the same time, got to keep a watching brief on where this all might go and what it does mean for us, and how it fits into our communication strategy and our growth strategy and so on.
It's as Ebony said earlier, we've all had one drink and we're at the party and we're having a great time. So we'll see how long it lasts.
It could get messy towards the end. Exactly.
Great. Well, thank you, Gav.
And thank you for joining us.